The happiest couple I've ever met, the couple to give hope to anyone who didn't believe in love, came crashing down from their happy, cloudless blue sky. And it all began with an old, bitter woman. I arrived at JC's house 5 p.m. sharp. She's always obsessing with time, questioning why you're a minute late or a minute early, as if she's a detective and you're in her interrogation room. A young woman with pitch black hair, dark clothing, a nose ring and a few tattoos to go with it all. Her home decorated not too differently from herself, with pumpkins sitting on the porch in September, black wind chimes, and a very welcoming rug at the doorstep that reads, "Leave now." I felt special being the only person she trusted. Still, it took me a few knocks and even a reluctant ring of the doorbell to get her to answer. "Hey," I began, ending the awkward stare down she always initiated when that door opened. "Ralph," she said, smiling. "How you doing?" "Good. Good. Yourself?" She took a moment to trace the floor with her left foot. "Good. JC and I had planned a movie night. Well, as long as the movie wasn't too long, as she never allows anyone, even me, inside her home after 9:30 p.m. My nostrils were introduced to a scent of fresh batch of cinnamon cookies. I'd hoped that they were for us, but JC brought back a bowl of popcorn and soda for the movie instead, which was fine. I certainly wasn't going to complain and then end up losing her trust for the next 2 decades. The movie ended. We thought Halloween 2 was okay. I gave myself a little tour while JC went upstairs to find another movie. I was glad she was willing to watch another, that she was beginning to open up and let her friends back into her life. I guess the boredom from all the loneliness she's been experiencing the past few years finally got to her. My eye caught a picture framed above the fireplace of JC and her ex-boyfriend, Tyler. No one knows what happened between them. All we know is that one day they were together and the next day they weren't. After the breakup, Tyler simply disappeared and no one's seen him since. And the aftermath shows. It shows in JC's eyes. "Saw 4? JC waved the DVD from atop the stairs, awaiting my response. "Sure." Somehow, over and despite the gore of Saw 4, she slowly drifted into a deep sleep. I wasn't really paying much attention to the movie anyway, so that was fine. And it was about time for me to leave soon. I made myself over to the kitchen for a glass of water. I noticed the time, 9:15 p.m. I thought I'd better get going soon, even if JC wasn't going to wake up in the next 15 minutes. I told myself I would wake her up before I left out of respect for her rules. I noticed a tray of cinnamon cookies on the counter and figured she wouldn't notice one missing anyway. I looked down the hallway before turning the sink on to see if JC's still asleep. I didn't want to make too much of a noise washing my hands, but it wasn't the sound of running water that woke her up. It was my scream. As I washed my hands, I made out a face of a man in the window in front of the sink. I jumped back in shock, with JC running into the kitchen with questions. What happened?" she demanded to know. "Call the cops. I think someone tried to break into your house. I saw him through the window by the sink." "What did he look like?" I don't know. Definitely a man though. I think he was white." She burst out in a sudden laughter. "No more movies tonight, Ralph. Time to go." She didn't believe me, or she wasn't taking it seriously. "I'm not leaving you here. You're not staying here alone." "I'll be fine." "Not happening," I sternly interrupted. JC finally noticed the time. Her expression suddenly turned serious, and she uncrossed her arms. "Oh, no, Ralph. You have to go, now." I poked my head to the side, looking out the kitchen. I saw the same men through the living room window this time. "Holy shit! Call the cops, he's right there!" JC looked back. She saw him too. A very loud and violent bang against the door rumbled throughout the house. She ran for the front door to make sure it was locked. Except, she actually ran to the front door so I wouldn't look through the peephole. "Move! What are you doing? We gotta see this guy's face so we can describe him." "Ralph, what? Move!" "Ralph, please." Confusion hit me. "Why won't you move, JC?" Tears ran down her face, followed by trails of black eyeshadow. She seemed hopeless, like she had just given up, like she was finally ready to tell me something. "Ralph, do you remember that old woman? The one Tyler and I. She dried her face with her sweater. The one me and Tyler visited. Yeah, okay, what about her? JC and Tyler were as open-minded as they come. They dipped their toes into diverse pools of knowledge. Knowledge in religion, culture, science, you name it. They studied Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and anything else that sparked their interest. Which is why, at the request of a former friend, they decided to meet with a woman who claimed to possess certain abilities. A very old, serious, grey-haired woman whose shoulders almost met the back of her neck. This woman lived up in the mountains, in absolute isolation. Although open-minded and always willing to listen, JC and Tyler couldn't help but laugh at the woman, who claimed to be one of the last people on Earth who knew how to practice real witchcraft. The woman did not react mercifully at their mocking, and supposedly proved to JC and Tyler that she was in fact very real. It was a running joke that JC would tell us from time to time, even when Tyler left. They broke up immediately after meeting that old woman. But no one thought that it was their reasoning. JC! She looked up at me, still leaning against the door. What about the woman? What the hell does she have to do with anything that's happening right now? The tears started again. Then another very, very loud bang against the door. It was so strong that it rattled the locks and even shook some picture frames on the wall out of place. Holy shit! Okay, JC, move, please! I moved her away from the door to look through the peephole. Ralph, please! I saw the stuff of nightmares. A man on the ground, standing on all fours. That is, standing on his legs and hands. His crooked head looking up at the door, shifting fast, shifting inhumanely fast. His eyes were pitch black, like JC's hair, and he was completely naked, with his ribcage poking against his skin. He was standing so close to the door that I was able to see every little detail. Then he, or it, opened its mouth to reveal cat-like teeth. I jumped back as it began to bang its head against the door again. I looked at JC, waiting for an explanation. She just looked back at me, as if expecting me to figure out myself, like I was supposed to know. Then she ran to the kitchen, and she came back with a tray of cinnamon cookies she had baked earlier. She placed her hand on the doorknob and looked at me. They're still his favorite. What are you doing? Don't open the door! She opened the door and walked outside, closing it behind herself. I looked through the peephole, then ran to the living room to get a better look through the window. She was feeding it the cookies and petting it on the head. It rubbed against her legs. She kissed it on its forehead while it consumed everything she placed in front of it. Then, in a sight that made me jump back from the window, it suddenly ran off into the woods, moving incredibly fast. I just stared at JC as she walked back inside. She froze by the staircase, still waiting for me to say something. By then, it just hit me. Tyler always did like those cookies.